Hey crew, welcome to the blogging warfare today. I want to let you know a little bit about what's going on right now. We're running into some technical issues in getting connected with Dustin, getting him into this hangout. So we're trying to still get some of that remedy. But what we're going to go ahead and do, and I know that this past week Dustin's been in Canada and been hopping around all over the place there. So it may just be a connection issue with trying to get whatever's going on in Canada. We're trying to get that fixed and hopefully get him in. Now, if there's a problem and we can't get him in for this show, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to reschedule that so that we can make sure that we're able to sit down and really dig into Dustin's wisdom here, because I know he has a lot to share. But in the meantime, here's what Robert and I decided we're going to go ahead and do. Robert does a lot with web design. I do a lot with photography, and we're going to have a discussion just about the importance of visuals and open this up for you as the audience to be able to ask any of the questions that you have, be able to take part of this conversation, and make this something really rather meaningful, because both Robert and I both do consulting, and so we're going to make this sort of a wide open consultation. But I want to apologize for the technical issues that we're having, and do let you know that we will be, if we can't get him in by the end of the show, we will be rescheduling that so that we can make sure that we're able to bring Dustin into this interview live. But in the meantime, let me introduce to you my co-host. I'm Thomas Hanna. This guy over here, coming from the other end of the world, is Robert Ryan. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Robert.
Cheers for the intro, Thomas. Well, as you said, my name is Robert Ryan. I'm from, my site is robertryan.ie. I'm a WordPress developer, SEO, and social media type of guy. I'm currently living in Madrid because once you work online, you can work anywhere, which is one of the things that I really, really like about it. But anyway, as Thomas has said to our ever-expanding global audience out there, Justin has just chimed in trying to get a hangout, so folks contacting my Google Apps account. So the technical difficulties are looking like they're about to resolve, and the main man, star of the show, is trying to join us, which is good news. But what also is good news is all the other people who've joined us, like Nick Sharp, Nikki Pasquare, Neil Faree, Tim Longwell, Coach G. Moore, Roxanne Davenport, Michael Rybel, and all the rest. Thank you very much for bearing with us. It's taken us a little bit longer than usual to get this show on the road, but it looks like it's slowly but surely getting to go on the road. So with that said, and like Thomas said, we really want to solicit some questions from you guys for this show today, so as we're going to put them to Dustin. He is one of the most kind of, I suppose, renowned visual graphic designer type people on Google+, and you know, he's made his name out of his visuals. He's been promoted, or he's currently got a job now in Field Media. I believe he's the CMO there. So that kind of, you know, just testimony and testament to the fact that he has got the major design chops. So if you do have questions, you should really take advantage of the opportunity to put them to Dustin now. But whilst we're still waiting for Dustin to get in, I'm going to actually put my co-host in the hot seat and ask him about his take on visuals. Because again, you've all seen Blog Photo TV blow up all over Google+, and you might have been wondering, well, how the heck did that happen? How is this guy got his branding so tight and on point so that it is kind of taking over? So what would you say, Thomas, what kind of aspects of branding are central to everything that you do for your Blog Photo TV?
Well, you know, it's neat talking about branding, particularly for this hangout, because the pivotal person that shifted my perspective on visuals and branding and how we do that type of stuff is Dustin Stout. So we're going to get him in here and pick his brain. But one of the things that really sunk home to me just how important visuals are is I started looking at the research on websites and how that connects to your audience. And I discovered things like the fact that it takes 50 milliseconds, that's a 20th of a second, for a viewer to get a first impression about a site that shapes their perception of that site's credibility. So, in other words, within the first 20th of a second after your site loads, a person has already made a judgment about the credibility of that site based purely on the visual aspect of that site. And so making sure that you have something that is that draws the eye, that is engaging, that's easy to flow, and that isn't confusing is, I think, really central to web design. I know a lot of times when we dive into websites and we have to look for a while before we can actually figure out what is sort of the side ads or the peripheral stuff and what is actually the content, that takes away from that whole experience. So being able to make that visual experience something that is enjoyable has really been central to, for me, in terms of trying to design a site that connects with the audience. And I think that's the transition, is that we're not just simply producing content, we're producing a web experience. And I know that you Robert, you actually do a lot on the coding side of designing websites, and particularly in WordPress. What are some of the challenges that you've run into in figuring out how to make a site that draws the eye where you want it drawn to?
Well, from a coding point of view, to be honest, I wouldn't spend too much time kind of getting my hands dirty. I'm not the ultimate code monkey at all, but what I do spend my time on is working with our lead graphic designer, Elena Montes, who works with us, and what she does and what I'm kind of really, I suppose, focused on is making sure that the images, and it kind of harps back to what you were saying, is that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So all the images that are used throughout the site, they should be edited in the same way, have the same sort of, make sure the contrast and the lighting is the same, but also even just the small details like overlaying a watermark of the logo or something like that. It gives the extra level of polish and sheen. And again, ultimately, everything online is all about perception, and if you can control and shift someone's perception to a positive light by just having a nice, nicely watermarked image where it looks like actually, a bit of attention to detail, that you cared that the image was looking the best it can be, that resonates with people perhaps on a subconscious level even, and as a result of that, it can just lift the overall experience of a website. So it's not so much, again, where things are placed is important, but you want to make sure that what you're placing is the best it can be. And so, I shudder and I hate the notion of pixelated images, and when clients send them through, it's just like, no, I'm not going to let you destroy your site by putting something like that on there. Because if something, the first person, when they land on a site, if the first thing they see is this nasty pixelated image, that is not going to give them any confidence that this person or this site will be trustworthy, firstly, but it just, people don't share low quality, lo-fi images. And so, to feed into the other side of it, if you want your images to be shared, you should make sure that they do look good, but that they contain a little bit of subtle branding. So again, from the perception point of view, familiarity breeds clicks, is one thing I like to say. And so if people can see your logo time and time again, the likelihood of them eventually clicking through to your site, or for them to get a better idea as to who you are and what you're about, once that solidifies in their mind, then you have a much better opportunity of either getting them to the site or moving them through the funnel and getting them to become a paying customer. And again, I don't know if people out there in the audience like Eileen Smith, I will give you a shout out, Eileen, of course I will. So if people, if you've seen some of my branding, for example, pretty much every image I've put out, I've had my little logo on it, and that's from day one. And I think as a result of that, whenever I plant my little logo down on a new social network, the Sue or LO or whatever the other ones are, some people, they recognize me because it translates and it carries over from what I've been doing on Google Plus and Facebook and my own site.
And I think that's really essential, Robert, what you're getting at there is because there's an aspect of branding that brings cohesiveness to a site, even beyond just, just the logo, but in terms of having a feel that is fairly consistent. And the people that really do this well, they put up an image and you immediately know that it's their image. Even before you notice like the logo in there. Dustin Stout does this incredibly well. You see the stuff he puts up and you know that's a Dustin Stout image. Rebecca Radice is another one. She publishes an article or has a graphic or something, and you know that is Rebecca's thing, because she's able to maintain that sort of
the orange hue that just kind of comes through everything.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's almost like her orange hue that she's almost made her own at this stage. Whenever she uses that in a graphic, you instantly know that's Rebecca Radice, And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with Dustin as well, because he has such a refined kind of color palette that he uses. Most images of his, they will use the same sort of colors again and again, and that just forms a very kind of concrete image in a viewer's mind as to who this person is, and we can identify with them exactly like you said.
Yeah, and it integrates those images with the greater part of the site. So if there are certain colors that you attribute to that, and you know that color, that's not just part of the image. That's part of training, really training your readers to be able to identify that in connection with actions that you want them to take. So if you have a specific color that you identify as an action color, that action color is the one that shows up on the buttons, on the links, on the things that people can actually act on the site, and then nowhere else. So that becomes identified with what you're doing, but it also trains people to be able to connect with it in the ways that you are wanting them to, so they can pick that up immediately and very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose kind of what you're talking about there.
I'm trying to go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know, like is the kind of the visual side when it's on an actual site, and how you can use colors and graphics as kind of a cue as to what you want people to do. And so, you know, first you're talking about being consistent. If you are having an action button or a call to action, you want to make sure that site-wide will be more or less consistent, so that people, you know, that they so there's doesn't, but so that people can, you know, recognize it. But then the other side of the coin is you can actually use graphics to kind of draw attention to certain aspects of your site. So one other site that we did recently for a client, basically had a special offer whereby he had free delivery within the Dublin area. For those of you who are in Ireland, you'll know where Dublin is, but basically, so what we did, we had a nice little van with a special kind of illustration and graphic just highlighting the fact that it was free delivery within the Dublin area. But that in itself has worked out very well, because straight away it sucks people's, you know, there's some text here, but they're going to look at the free delivery, and then that's where the call to action is as well. So just those little kind of things, understanding the visual cues and how they can, you know, impact on a user's actions when they're on a site is something to be aware of when you're building a site and when you're using visuals, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And there's an aesthetic, and I'm looking for folks. If you've got questions, I know that we are not dealing with what we had initially intended to do, but as we're still tying in with all of our questions on branding and graphics and visuals, if you still have those questions, go ahead and still tie those in, and Robert and I will be happy to try to tackle those as best as we can while we're still looking at further connecting in with Dustin Stout.
Okay, he is trying to connect, so it's.
Yeah, I see that. In fact, I have a message from him now. Okay, he's telling me that Google Hangouts is loaded for him now. So I'm going to go ahead and toss him the link, and hopefully he can get in over here, and we can get him in.
But just going through the comments, I agree with Eileen Smith there. She's just gone. I think she's giving Dustin the ultimate praise and saying that he's a beast when it comes to branding, and I would agree. I'm looking forward to getting him in so we can, you know, tickle the beast's belly and get some good info out for you guys.
Tickle the beast's belly. That is the
Beast and the tickle.
I know that
Hello, Dustin.
Has been an event, but welcome, Dustin.
Hello.
Yeah, I imagine things have been a little challenging there in Canada and getting everything connected up with Google Plus or the Google Hangouts, huh?
Well, I'm back in the States. I arrived yesterday. I don't know what day it is. I came back into town Thursday. That's right. And yeah, it's this is an ongoing struggle that I have with Google Plus, and I'll take a minute to publicly ream the Hangouts team. I've met some of you before, and you guys need to clean up your act, because I can never, ever connect to Hangouts when I need to. So Google, get it together. Fire somebody on the Google Hangouts team if you need. Hire someone that knows how to fix this thing, because this has been going on for 6 months.
Yeah, well, I am glad that we're able to get you in, Dustin. I know, I imagine that was really frustrating on your side, particularly when you can see the comments going
Mm.
on. And you're just
I never say anything negative about Google. I've been to a fault. People have said, you never say anything bad about Google. Everything's always good. Okay, well, this is the one thing that absolutely sucks about Google Plus is Hangouts and the reliability. Somebody on that team has bugged my account, and they've put some sort of algorithm that says whenever Dustin needs to be in a meeting or in a Hangout or in a live event, his Hangouts is not going to work.
and they have the data to do it, so you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I imagine if it's okay with, and I'm maybe stepping out of my bounds here, but if it's okay with the two of you, since we normally have about 5 minutes left in what would be the show, if we're able to go, if it's good with both of you that we go a little bit longer, I don't know what your schedules are, but is that something that we can do?
I'm fine with that.
I can do that too.
Awesome. Then
We
let's
have to keep our ever expanding global audience happy.
Yeah, well, and I've been so looking forward to being able to pick your brain, Dustin, because really you were the first, even before Blog Photo TV ever happened, you were the first person that I actually connected with that knew what they were talking about with Google Plus and with branding and with any of that stuff. And everybody else that I've built relationships with came after that. It was the connections I saw you making with people and so on. So you and what you've been doing has had a huge impact on me. But I know that you've been at this for a little while, so I'm going to hand this over to your corner, and I want to know, how long did it take you to develop Dustin TV, and in particular your very iconic brand with Dustin.tv?
Well, it was a long time coming. A lot of people don't know my story. I started my blog as a, give me 1 second. Sorry, gardeners. All right, so I started my blog as simply a means of writing out my thoughts. At the time, I was a youth pastor, and so I was, constantly teaching, creating lessons, and so I wanted a way to record those lessons where the parents of my students could access them, so they know what the heck I'm teaching their kids. I thought that was a good idea, and so additionally, I also thought it would be a great outlet for me to type out and write about what I'm learning. And for me, part of the learning process is verbalizing it, or at least typing it out, in a sense, because they say that you retain about 10% of what you hear, about 50% of what you do, and then about 90% of what you teach. So I've taken that, to a level of everything that I learn or I want to learn, I teach. I sort of teach it as I learn it. So I take it as, I'm taking people along the journey with me. Mm-hmm. And whatever I discover, I want to make that everyone aware. So that's where the blog came. It started on Posterous, if anybody remembers that obscure blogging platform. It was my favorite, and I still think it could have done really well today. But started there, and then I started following a guy named John Saddington, who has done many things online, and he was an avid blogger. He was an avid WordPress fan, still is to this day, and he had a creative shop that created a WordPress theme called Standard Theme, and he sold me on it after reading through his blog for a number of weeks. I decided to get myself a self-hosted WordPress blog and bought Standard Theme, and from there everything kind of took off, and my ministry tapered off. My position at the church was cut due to budgets, unfortunately, but it launched me into a career to where people were asking me to do their social media for them and to start building websites, because I learned a little bit about building websites along the way. And I always had a graphic design background, so that kind of fit really well, and people wanted to pay me to do it for them. So I just continued writing, and I continued learning, and to this day I continue learning and writing about what I learn and what I discover. And as I have the opportunity to work with more clients, I'm learning at what feels like an exponential level. So I continue to try and document it at an exponential level. Although sometimes when you're working in the industry, it's really hard to it's funny, the social media industry is one of those industries where when you're doing it, when you're really working it, it's really hard to keep up with it. You're at least your personal side. It's sort of the shoemaker's kids kind of thing. I'm doing so much blogging and posting and website designing for my clients, I have no time to do it for myself. So.
And this past year for you has been particularly interesting because you not only went from what you were doing with Dustin TV, but then you wound up expanding into I just suddenly blanked on the name that Ben Fisher was the lead of, and then you went from that into Wheel Media, which is where you are now as the CMO. And you had made a comment not long after you got started. I think it was while you were at the event that you guys were all at in Vegas, where you said that one of your missions to do with Wheel Media is to help each person that's on there really develop their personal branding. Have you continued to do much with that?
I'm sorry, I lost you. Can you phrase that one more time?
Yeah, no problem. One of the things, well, the question that I had, you had mentioned a few months ago, recently after you started on with Wheel Media, which you are now the CMO of, if I remember correctly. One of your missions was to help the people that are all the different members of that team develop their own personal branding. Have you continued to do? Have you done much with that in terms of their personal brands? And are there any lessons that you can pass on to us who are trying to develop our own personal brands as well?
Absolutely. You know, it's a funny thing because, you know, everywhere I go, you know, everything I do, let me take you back a little bit further. Even before my blogging started, I moved out to California to become an actor. I've always, all my life, wanted to be in the entertainment industry. You know, it stems from a number of things. You know, I have a proclivity to entertaining, and I just love making people smile, making people laugh, and I love you know, delighting people. I love to see the delight on people's face, and I love the art of storytelling. And when it comes to marketing, that's essentially what we're doing. If we're doing our jobs correctly and we're doing it with integrity, all we're doing is sharing stories, and we're telling these stories in ways that are compelling, that are delightful, and that translates to everybody's personal brand. You have a story. Robert Ryan has a powerful story. T.E. Hanna has a powerful story. Coach G. Moore has a powerful story. Missy J has. Everyone, Todd Smith, Roxanne, everyone here and everyone around the world has a powerful story to tell, and that is their brand. And some people's brands cover more material than others. You know, some are more inclined to be involved in different things than others, and some people are a little more focused. But everybody has a story to tell, and branding is just telling it in a way that that allows the observer to digest and to understand it. And one thing that I work on with everybody, we're still in the early stages of helping all the Wheel Media team develop their own personal brands and refine the brands. Their personal brands are developing all the time, and they're always evolving. But what I'm working on is refining that message, or refining it, you know, to the point where people know this is what he's about, or this is what she's about. And we've started that process very slowly. We've got a lot of work to do. We've been very blessed with some great clients. So it's a slow-going process, but yeah, we started working on it. And the first thing that I always ask anybody, and that you should be asking yourself constantly, is what's my core values? Because it starts there. Every story starts there. What are my values? What do I value in life, and what am I reaching for in this life to attain? So start with your values, and then go to your goals. A lot of people want to start with goals, but if you don't have your values clearly outlined first, then your goals are going to change. they're going to be unclear. But if you can understand what you value, for me, it's I value relationships, I value storytelling, I value quality, and I value integrity of the highest caliber. So that drives my goals. And once you understand your values and what your core beliefs are, and the things that you don't compromise, then you can start setting goals. Well, what do you want to do with your career? Well, I want to be a professional blogger. Okay, great. So align that goal with your values: integrity, quality, fashion. And I do apologize today. I'm not wearing my traditional red V-neck.
You got a red background though, so we're good.
I got the red background though. That works. But decide on the goals. I mean, it really starts there. The hardest thing to do, whether it's a personal brand or even a business, is to set goals and set a target audience, because your goals should always line up with who those goals are geared towards. And a lot of businesses, they struggle to find who it is they're speaking to exactly to. And a lot of businesses, when they're coming out, they go, I want to reach as many people as possible, anyone and everyone, males and females, ages 2 to 92. And that just doesn't work, because your message becomes garbled and it becomes diluted. But if you have clear values, if you have clear goals, and you know exactly who you want to talk to, then you can become a very strong brand very quickly.
Gotcha.
So I guess it's those handful of things: values, goals, audience.
Values, goals, audience. That's great. Values, goals, audience, to maintain those things. Let me transition this a little bit over into the visual side of things. Because one of the things that you are best known for, in addition to branding, is your incredible ability to create visuals and to teach people how to create visuals that connect with others. So now you just went through talking about those three elements. How would you connect those to the visual component of this? And I have to tie in with this. In fact, let me do this first, then we'll go back to the question I asked. Missy J had an interesting question. I'm going to bring this up here. She wanted to know, when dealing with visuals, is it best to shock people with your design, or what is the best way to draw your design, to draw people into what you're saying? And let me expand on that, not just what you're selling, but what is the best way to use your design to draw people into your story? Let me expand on it that way.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing I would say is you want to really correct your self-talk, or at least your internal dialogue. Are you selling people? Because that becomes a lot harder to do. If you're trying to sell someone on a product, sell someone on a service, sell someone on a brand or anything, the word sell psychologically is ingrained to induce resistance. So the minute you're trying to sell someone, you're working against them. You're forcing yourself head to head against them to try and convince them of something. Whereas if you say you're just telling your story, I love making this statement is branding is how you tell your story. Marketing is compelling people to take part. And so when you're storytelling, you're not focused on winning them over. You're not focused on you're not head to head at odds with them. If you're just storytelling and you're just sharing. I mean, you're literally just telling them about the journey that you've been on, or taking them through an emotional journey. So I would first just phrase it in your own mind as, what are you telling, not what are you selling. And shock value is an interesting thing. It's a very delicate tool. You don't want to use shock too much, because people become numb to it. It becomes tiresome. It becomes gimmicky. If you have something that is really shocking, or really a revelation of thought that people need to have, then sure, use something that's shocking, something that's bright, something that catches the attention. But don't use it too much, because then people, it becomes a bit laborious. If it's the same shock value over and over, people get tired of it really quickly, and they learn to tune you out. So, like all things, in moderation, shock can be, very well. And there's certain things that induce a psychological state of shock visually. The colors red and yellow and orange are very bright, very warm colors. The color red, in fact, has been proven scientifically that when the human eye sees the color red, our heart rate increases. So, there's a psychological tie there. One of my favorite colors is red. So I do like the attention-getting nature. But again, if used in abundance, it can have an adverse effect. Mm-hmm. So just be very careful in how you use shock. Use colors correctly if you do want to use shock value, and in moderation.
Gotcha. So what are some tips then that you can give to those of us that are non-designers on how to increase the visual impact of what we're doing online?
Well, the first thing is to think of visuals as another form of communication. So you're not just finding an image that's pretty. You're not just finding something that looks good. You're looking for an image that communicates your message. So lock onto a core concept. When I'm looking for a blog post, a perfect example, I guess, would be one of my most popular blog posts today, and that's the it's titled "The Best Places to Find Free Images Online." And I think I wrote it right before blogphoto.tv came out, unfortunately, so I didn't get to add that into the mix. But I have been consulting people ever since to have the blogphoto.tv. But for that post, the core message is images, finding images. So I needed an image that would communicate images. So that was the core concept, images. And so all I needed to do was find a photo that matched that core concept, and I found a photo of a camera. What says images better than an image of a camera? A camera is something that takes images or creates images. So it's using a great visual is first and foremost about communicating the message, and secondly about looking good. Now, if you do your job at creating a good, high-quality image, that's really all you need to worry about, is just at making sure that there's a visual that communicates the message. Because I tell people all the time, the human brain is so powerful, and it processes images 60,000 times faster than text on a page. So somebody lands on my blog post, and the first thing they see is camera. The first thing they think is images before they read anything. Their brain is already being conditioned to read what it's about to read, and they're making that emotional connection to that image. Now, there's, we can go on for a while about what makes a great image, what makes a good image, what makes a bad image. I think it's subjective, though, in that you have to know what your audience is kind of attuned to. If your audience is very young, if you have a sort of a millennial-based audience or a younger-based audience, they tend to gravitate towards warmer images, brighter images, images that have a little more life to them. Whereas if you're shooting towards a more mature audience, then you're going to want to stick to things that are a little more corporate, a little more polished, a little more stocky. But the younger crowd doesn't want to see anything that's stock. They don't want to see anything that looks businessy, that looks like some corporate photo shoot. They don't want to see businessmen in ties. You know what I mean? So you want to understand your audience and what it is that they're looking for and what connects to them, because that's what it's about. Again, it's about communicating the message and connecting it to your audience. And make sure it's always high quality. Quality communicates value.
Awesome. Awesome. Now we're kind of running near the end of the time, even after extending it an extra 15 minutes. But for a while, a visual mastery course. Do you still have that going on, and where can people find you at to learn about that if you do?
The visual content mastery was a one-time course. I tried it as a test run. I only sold pre-orders, so if you didn't pre-order it ahead of time, then unfortunately it's locked away in the vault. But everyone who did pre-order got a copy of it, and you may be able to bug someone to share it with you. But I will be doing another one once everything is sort of mellowed out as far as getting Wheel Media going. We've got a brand new website design coming that's, in my opinion, pretty killer. We've got some very large client projects going on, and I've got some personal things that need to be wrapped up for Dustin.tv, some exciting things happening there. So once everything kind of mellows out again, I'll be doing a second run of visual content mastery. I learned a lot. I was so thankful. I had such a great class. They gave me great feedback, and there was a lot of really cool just testimonials that I was able to get from that, and I'll be able to make the next class a whole lot better. And so just be sure you subscribe to my insiders list, because they always get the first go at anything like that. And the first email I sent out about that class, the first 14 seats were gone like that. So definitely get on the insiders list and open those emails immediately, because you never know when I'm going to drop one of those exclusive insider signups. So,
and to be honest, I'm on your insiders list, and every email that you send out is exclusive insiders information. So you do your, one of the things I love about you is you do your email very differently. It's not simply pushing an article out. It is, you get on that email list, and when you send them out once or twice a month, you get resources that you don't put up anywhere else. You get the passwords, so you have access to all your behind-the-scenes insider resources you've put out in the past. You get notified of things that are coming up, and you get early access to all that cool stuff like your course. So I'm just agreeing, yes, that insiders list is a huge amount of value, and we can get on that at Dustin.tv. Is that correct?
Yes, DUSTN.tv.
Right.
If you want to go straight to the newsletter, you go Dustin.tv/newsletter.
Because there's no I in Dustin.
No I in
Dustin. Too.
Why?
Because Ryan, you have. Oh, sorry.
Cool to drop a vowel, and someday I may be acquired by Yahoo, because they tend to like the things without vowels in it. Flickr, Tumblr, Dustin.
We'll look forward to that day when you are a Yahoo leader. Robert Ryan, let me send this on over to you as we begin to close up. Do you have any closing thoughts or any remarks for us?
Well, I think maybe instead of me giving my closing remarks, maybe we throw one or two audience questions at Dustin, because I've been watching the stream here, and we have been pretty much inundated with lots of different questions from different people. So are you okay for maybe just one or two questions, Dustin? A quick fire, rapid round. Okay, so let's go for the first one here. I think it's an interesting question. It's from Carrie Ann Foster. So hopefully I have it up on the screen there. But for a personal brand, where's it gone now? For a personal brand, how important is it to have a logo, or can you get away with just using your name? 1 minute to answer this one. Your time starts now.
Yes, if you want to build a brand rather than just a ubiquitous entity, a logo is vital. People need a visual cue to latch onto. Now, it can be as simple as your name. Take a look at Michael Hyatt, for instance. Michael Hyatt has done a phenomenal job at branding himself. His logo is simple, an MH inside of a comment quote type thing. So really, to make yourself a logo, a personal branded version of you that you can keep consistent and that people can latch onto, just pick a typeface that you like, pick a font that you like, keep your name in that font, and make it consistent everywhere that you post it.
Good answer. Next one we have from Todd Smith. So his question is, and it's going to be very, very quick. We're going to get through a fair few of them. So how does a novice know if their website is visually impactful? Isn't that in the eye of the beholder? out of 100 people, 55 might like a design and 45 don't like it. So how do you know something's working?
Well, you know something's working if, number one, if it's converting. I think that's the best way to know if it's working or not, because, like you said, you know, visuals is sort of subjective, and as soon as you ask people who are not designers to give you their opinion, they will absolutely give you their opinion, whether they are qualified or not, which is why I tend to not ask non-designers for their design opinion, but that's another story altogether.
Mm.
You really have to look at what is visually on the page, and is it helping the story or is it distracting from the story? You'll go to Dustin.tv, and if you've followed Dustin.tv over the years, you've noticed every time I redesign the site, it seems to get simpler, because I'm realizing more and more that anything else on the page that is not the story or that does not help tell the story does not need to be there. So I see all kinds of sites with frills and flares and highlights and colors here and colored sections there, and it makes no sense because it distracts from the story. So always go back to what your core message is, and is the visual of your website helping or hindering or distracting from?
Good. And then maybe one more from Coach G. Moore, not exactly related to visuals, but still right up your alley, I'm sure. So, WordPress or Blogger?
I would have to answer that with a question. Do you plan on not growing? Do you plan on staying a small scale, or do you plan on scaling? So if you don't plan on scaling very big, Blogger works just fine. But if you plan on scaling in the future, growing your site, getting paid advertising, you know, getting a little more complex and growing to an asset of some sort, then you definitely want to go WordPress. WordPress will help you to scale larger, and it'll allow you more options, more features, and you know, I assume she's asking for WordPress.com, but that also makes for an easy transition to self-hosted WordPress. So my recommendation is always WordPress, although Blogger does work for certain goals and certain types of blogs.
Mm-hmm. I'm very happy that was the answer you gave, given what I do on a daily basis. But anyway, I think we'll let you off the hook after just 3 quick-fire, rapid questions. But I think that was pretty useful. A lot of people probably got a lot out of that. I think we can wrap it up there. Is there any other questions from any other quarters? Thomas?
I had one from Missy J. And I'm not real sure how to interpret this, but she says, going back to having your values in terms of design, is it like having a niche way of working? And I think what she's referring to here, in another HA, Missy had asked about whether you need to have a niche when you're focusing on a target audience, or if you can just write for everybody, and the answer to that came is that it's really helpful to have a particular group that you're focusing on. So yeah. If I'm reading this question correctly, I think she's comparing having your values in terms of design, is that similar to also having a very focused audience? I think that may be where she's going with this. In other words, are you focusing on the values that you are trying to communicate in particular to that audience? Or is it more general than that?
I always like to go focused. I think of it like a laser. A message is you know, like a light that you're shining into the world. So if you're trying to reach the widest possible audience, you're going to use a flashlight or, you know, a floodlight, you know, the widest beam possible, and you might, you know, catch as much as you can. But if you have a laser is so focused that it can cut through, literally cut through objects and obstacles. So, I mean, if you want to spray and see as much as you can see and get to where you might do okay, but if you are laser focused, you will burn through objections, you'll burn through hurdles, you'll burn through all those little things that come with trying to please everyone. And we all know that if you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. But if you connect to your audience in a way that makes it personal to them, then you'll go much, much farther. It's how I was able to, in the last 3 years, to build the level of audience that I have. I have such wonderful people on my email list who email me all the time. My open rates on my email list are significantly higher than industry averages. And the reason is because I speak to my audience. When I sit down and I write, I'm thinking of one person in my head. I'm not thinking of, Jerry down the street and the 45 to 65 crowd. How are they going to interpret? I'm thinking of my wife. How would I explain this to her? And then I write for her. One of the greatest novelists of all time. I forget his name. Stephen King. Every novel that he ever wrote, he wrote for his wife. And look at the audience that he was able to capture. Look at the compelling stories he was able to create because he focused his message towards one person, and it connected in a big, big way. And so that's what I always encourage.
Awesome. Thank you, Dustin. Let me reiterate. Connect in at dustn.tv to get on his email list. In fact, I think Carrie Ann just put up a link there to be able to go to his newsletter and sign up for that. So make sure you do that. And I think that's all of the questions that we have. I really want to thank you, Dustin, for coming on here, particularly battling through all of those challenges. I know how frustrating that was, and being willing to stay with us here for a bit longer. Robert, my amazing co-host, I appreciate you also staying on and bringing this out so we can have a really good show today. And all of you out there in our globally expanding audience, make sure you drop us a message. Drop me over at Blog Photo TV a message, Robert Ryan at robertryan.ie, and Dustin Stout at dustn.tv. We look forward to connecting with you, and I'll be lingering here in the comments for a little while longer as well, so feel free to throw up anything else that we weren't able to get to. Thank you, guys, and unless you have anything else to say, I think it's time to call it a night.
Indeed.
Goodbye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
See you guys later.